Go to your bathroom right now, and you'll find razors, shaving creams, and trimmers. For us, getting rid of body hair is just a 5-minute boring routine. But if you rewind the clock 30,000 years, there were no mirrors, no salons, and definitely no steel blades. Yet, ancient cavemen weren't all walking around looking like Chewbacca. Archaeologists have found evidence that Stone Age humans actually shaved. But why would someone living in a dangerous jungle care about a clean-shaven face? It wasn't about looking good for a date. In the prehistoric world, a long beard was a death sentence. Imagine hunting a saber-toothed cat, and your giant beard gets caught in a thorny bush. You're stuck, and now you're dinner. More importantly, long hair and beards were the perfect breeding ground for prehistoric lice and ticks. These bugs didn't just cause itching. They carried deadly diseases that could wipe out a tribe. Also, in freezing winters, moisture from your breath would freeze inside a thick beard. This could cause severe frostbite, literally rotting the skin on your face. And finally, in close combat tribal wars, a long beard was a giant handle for your enemy to grab. Once they grabbed your beard, your neck was completely exposed to their stone club. So, survival meant the hair had to go. But how? The very first technique humans used was the most painful one: plucking. They would use seashells like modern tweezers, pulling out every single facial hair from the root. Imagine doing that to a full beard. Ouch! When they got tired of crying, they upgraded to flint knives. Flint is a rock that, when broken correctly, becomes sharper than a modern surgical scalpel. Cavemen would literally scrape this ultra-sharp rock against their dry skin. One wrong move, one small slip, and you'd slice your own throat open. To make it less deadly, they invented the world's first shaving cream. They mixed animal fat with wood ash to create a slippery paste that softened the hair. It smelled terrible, but it kept them from bleeding to death during their morning shave. Then came the Bronze Age, around 5,000 years ago, and things got fancy. Humans discovered metal. They started casting actual bronze and copper razors. These early razors didn't have handles. They were just curved metal blocks that you held with your bare fingers. But nobody took shaving more seriously than the ancient Egyptians. To the Egyptians, body hair was a sign of being uncivilized, dirty, and beast-like. The pharaohs and priests wanted to be completely, 100% hairless. And we aren't just talking about the beard. They shaved their heads, their eyebrows, and every single inch of their bodies. Why? Because Egypt was incredibly hot, and hair meant sweat, and sweat meant lice. In fact, wealthy Egyptians wore massive, elaborate wigs made of human hair or sheep's wool instead of growing their own hair. When they went outside, they put the wig on to protect their bald heads from the sun. Inside the house, they took it off to stay cool. They even invented the world's first sugaring wax, using sugar, water, and lemon juice to rip hair out. But if you think Egypt was extreme, wait till you see what the Romans did. In ancient Rome, a man's first shave was a huge religious festival called Depositio Barbae. A teenager would shave his first facial hair, put it inside a tiny gold box, and offer it to the gods. But what about the gladiators in the Colosseum? Did they fight with long, epic beards? Absolutely not. Julius Caesar himself ordered that all fighters and soldiers must be clean-shaven. Alexander the Great had already proven that in close combat, a beard is a giant, pull-here handle for your enemy. If an enemy grabbed your beard, your head was pulled down, and your neck was wide open for a sword. So, to avoid getting decapitated, Roman men spent hours at the public barber shops called tonstrini. But Roman razors were made of iron, which rusted instantly and became blunt after one shave. Barbers would literally scrape your skin with a blunt, rusty piece of metal without any foam. It hurt so bad that Roman poets actually wrote poems complaining about how much they hated their barbers. If you got a cut, the barber would apply a special ointment made of spider webs and oil. Yes, you heard that right. Prehistoric band-aids were literally cobwebs from the ceiling. But then, Rome fell, and the world entered the Dark Ages, where hygiene vanished. Suddenly, nobody cared about shaving anymore. Beards grew wild, long, and dirty. Pirates and Vikings used their massive beards as psychological weapons. The famous pirate Blackbeard would weave hemp into his giant beard and literally set it on fire before a battle. He looked like a literal demon rising from hell, terrifying his enemies into surrendering immediately. But while men were growing fire beards, what were medieval women doing about body hair? Well, Queen Elizabeth I started one of the weirdest trends in human history. She decided that eyebrows and hairlines were ugly. So, women started plucking their foreheads. They would move their hairline back by 2 inches, making their faces look elongated and alien-like. To stop the hair from growing back, they rubbed walnut oil mixed with vinegar on their faces. It burnt their skin, but hey, fashion is pain, even in the 16th century. But the ultimate war on beards happened in Russia, thanks to Peter the Great. In 1698, he decided Russia needed to look modern, so he literally banned beards. If you wanted to keep your beard, you had to pay a massive annual beard tax. The government gave you a copper token that said the beard is a useless burden. You had to carry it everywhere. If a guard caught you with a beard and no token, they would cut your beard off right there on the street with dull shears. This crazy tax lasted for nearly 70 years. It wasn't until the 1800s that the first straight razor was invented in Sheffield, England. They called it the cutthroat razor. Why? Because if your hand shook, you would literally slice your jugular vein. Shaving was so dangerous that most men only did it once a week, or paid a professional barber to risk their lives. Everything changed in 1901, when King Camp Gillette had a brilliant idea. He put a thin, cheap steel blade inside a safety guard. If you slipped, the guard stopped the blade from cutting your neck. During World War I, the U.S. government gave millions of these safety razors to soldiers so their gas masks would fit perfectly. When the soldiers came back home, they brought the habit with them, changing the world forever. Now, you might be thinking, okay, so ancient Europeans, Egyptians, and Romans were shaving. But what about the other side of the world? When European explorers first arrived in North America, they were shocked. They expected to see cavemen with massive, untamed beards. Instead, they found Native American men who were almost entirely hairless on their faces. Did they have metal razors? No. Their technique was even more extreme. Archeologists found that they used sharpened bone from animals like deer to manually pluck every single beard hair one by one. Imagine doing that on a sensitive neck or upper lip. This wasn't just grooming. It was a daily test of spiritual endurance. Wait, there's more. Some tribes used 2 flat volcanic stones as prehistoric tweezers, effectively grinding the hair out by rubbing the stones together. If that sounds bad, think about the alternative method, fire. They would take a burning ember or a small torch and gently singe their facial hair off close to the skin. Meanwhile, in ancient Japan, the legendary samurai had their own extreme hair rules. They would shave the top of their heads completely bald, a style called chamichi. Why? So their heavy iron helmets wouldn't slide off during intense sword fights. Sweat under a hairy scalp meant a loose helmet, which meant a quick death. They used folded steel blades that were sharpened to a molecular edge, risking their lives before every duel just to make sure their helmet fit tight. But just when humanity thought we had perfected shaving with lasers and 6-blade steel, we hit our final challenge, space. NASA spent billions of dollars on moon rockets, but they forgot to answer one simple question. How do you shave in zero gravity? If an astronaut shaves with modern foam and water in space, the drops will just float away. These floating drops of foam and millions of tiny cut hairs would travel directly into the spacecraft's complex circuits, causing short circuits that could crash the entire mission. NASA actually developed a special shaving cream that absorbs the cut hair so it won't float away. It's like a magical sticky paste. Or, they use electric trimmers with a built-in vacuum cleaner that immediately sucks the cut hair into a tiny internal garbage bag. Think about that. NASA had to invent a razor with a vacuum cleaner because a few stray hairs could destroy the most advanced technology in human history. From the caveman scraping his face with a volcano rock to an astronaut with a vacuum-powered clipper, human evolution is defined by our fight against body hair. So, the next time you use your smooth, safe modern razor, just remember the cavemen who bled so you could shave in peace. If you want to unearth more weird, untold chapters of human history told through simple doodles, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Join us on the epic arc as we map out the crazy daily struggles that made us who we are today. See you in the next era.